So when to replace your trainers it's a tough question, and there's no right answer. Many people go by feel, many people go by how they look, like many people go by a certain distance on the pair, and it just depends on whatever you think is best. Usually what I do is I run in them until they are not able to be ran in anymore. If that's, I wear through under my big toe, a really thin pair of soled shoes. If the upper tears and they're not usable anymore, some people will, every 500 miles, they retire a pair. I usually get 800 to 1500 miles per pair. Just depends, wear pattern, not super helpful. I really suggest just go by feel and how the shoes are. So the VO2 estimation on your Garmin or on any watch, it's an estimate. It probably takes into account your age, your heart rate, maybe resting, maybe exercise heart rate, whatever parameters you give it. And then it can be helpful. It's just an estimate. And I tell people that, with the athletes I coach, I use heart rate, I use pace, power, perceived exertion. They're all different ways to get to the same goal, which is appropriate running levels. And especially when you're kind of getting back into running, most of your running, probably all of it, should be at a very easy conversational pace. Mouth closed, nasal breathing on downhills and flat sections. You should be able to have a normal conversation. If you can't, simply running too hard. So there's no best shoe for flat feet, for runner's knee, etc. In general, there's no best shoe for X type of injury or whatnot. The research is really showing that when it comes to shoe selection, comfort is king. Find a pair that has an appropriate amount of cushioning and heel to toe drop, but there's no best. It's just about what's most comfortable, what fits the shape of your foot the best. When it comes to flat feet, to runner's knee, shoes are generally, quick to be blamed or talked about, but in reality, what you really want to consider is your training habits. Are you doing strength work? Are you eating enough calories to support your running, to support your recovery? Are your easy days easy enough? Are your hard days not too hard? Stuff like that. How's your sleep? Sleep plays a role in injury prevention. All this stuff is considerations. So being a heavier runner, and considering carbon-plated shoes. I always tell everybody, runners, people I coach, etc., that elite to back of the packer, it's all relative. And so, a good pair of shoes, proper nutrition, doing strength work, this is going to benefit everybody. We're all running at roughly the same effort. Speed is different, of course, but the effort is about the same. And, everybody's going to benefit from a pair of shoes that treats them well. And these carbon-plated shoes are generally very cushioned and very light. And that is a sweet combination. And so I recommend absolutely trying a pair out. So when a runner is in a period of low training volume due to, injury or recovery from a marathon or whatever, I always recommend doubling down on strength work when your time and energy availability, your bandwidth, is high because you're not running as much as you have been or maybe you would like to. So if you go to kylekranz.com/GSM, you'll find some great routines that take 10-15 minutes. They're simple, safe, easy to do, follow along with videos, and doing them now will leave you better, stronger in 2 weeks, in 2 months than you otherwise would have been. And when I start with a runner of mine, when I start with a runner for coaching, one of the first things we always do is get them doing strength work ASAP. So I'm actually working on a longer video about how I got over my calf injury, but never run through an injury. I joke to the clients, the runners I coach, that if the first time you tell me about a little niggle, something not feeling quite right, is after you ran through it twice and you can no longer run on it, you owe me $500. That's how serious it is. The best runners in the world are also the best at not running when things aren't feeling quite right. It could be that a few days off, a couple low volume weeks would be all it takes for a near injury, something not feeling quite right, to be totally fine. And it could take one run to make it to get it to the point where you need to take a month off or very low volume, because you got to the point where you're now the runner who wishes they wouldn't have ran through it, who wishes they would have rested better sooner. So I'll send you that video when I'm done about more considerations with a calf injury, but rest. So I think one of the best pieces of advice, at least from, in my opinion, when somebody is getting back into it, whether it's after an injury, an illness, they are, recovering from a marathon, or they've just been out of consistent running for a while, is to hire a coach. And I tell my new clients that my preferred time to have a new runner come to me for coaching is during or after a period of rest, because we get to start with a blank slate. And it's, good to nail down your proper training habits, nutrition work, strength work early on when your running volume is low, your energy and time bandwidth is higher, and you can nail down good habits straight away. And so when you're running more, in 2, 3, 4 months, you're better off then because you started off really smartly. Favorite ways to recover after a long run? Probably lots of food. It might be a breakfast, and go for a walk, a hike later that afternoon, and compression socks. Some massage gunning as well. So we've got food, a hike, breakfast. That's 2 breakfasts, and some compression socks and a massage gun. And that's a good way to recover from a long run. So the diet, the day before an event, something shorter than a half marathon. You probably don't need a carb load for it. Longer than a half marathon, carb loading can't hurt. Day before, don't eat too much for dinner. I like to kind of forward load the day with a heavy breakfast. I would do something like a couple bagels, really. And then this is like a pre-half or full marathon. Lunch would be something like some homemade pancakes. And then dinner, air-fried tofu, white rice, and a little bit of peanut sauce or something. So keeping it low fiber, high carb the day before an event. What do they say? Like, eat breakfast like a king and dinner like a pauper. Big breakfast, small dinner. That way you don't have too much in your stomach to deal with the morning of an event. Go for a little poop loop about an hour before, and you should be good to go. What to do when bad weather hits? Go run outside. I had a treadmill up until a couple years ago, and it busted. I decided not to replace it. My wife offered to get one, and I told her, no, I'm good. And I've been so glad to not have that as a backup or excuse. And nothing against treadmill running. I just realized that I really enjoy, more than I thought, being forced to run outside. And, with proper gear, good mindset, I'm not cold, I'm fine, and I always end up enjoying it. It's harder to get out there, that's for sure. But if it's go run outside in the winter or not run, I'm always going to make that good choice for me. And I'm always glad I do. So if you've lost your running mojo, a few things that have worked for me, that have worked for runners I work with, etc., are sign up for an event. Have something on the schedule to look forward to. It's nice to just have, even if it's not like a big deal, just having something, in 2 months from now can help with some motivation. Change something as well. Find a running buddy, join a group run. When people hire me for coaching, they get a huge motivational boost because they're trying new things. And so it can be, finding a strength class or a yoga session just to add something new into your week. It doesn't even have to be running related, but those things will help your running as well. Also, slow down. If you're running too hard too often, that's going to build up fatigue. Hey, so honestly, before like a park run, anything shorter than 10K, actually anything shorter than maybe 60 minutes or so, you really don't need anything during. Having a breakfast of maybe, minimum something like 100 calories, maybe a banana or an apple, maximum maybe a bowl of oatmeal-ish, one pancake, something like that. That's plenty. 30, 60 minutes before a 60 minute or shorter duration event should be all you need. I would, have a breakfast an hour before a 5K and sip on some coffee, maybe eat a banana, like just to put something in my stomach 30 minutes beforehand, and that should be fine for something short like a 5K or a 10K. So distance versus time on feet is sometimes helpful and sometimes not for long runs. Usually if it's a run that's not super hilly, you know how far you're going to run in X amount of miles. And so it doesn't really matter. It could be just like a mindset thing. Like I feel like running in minutes instead of miles. But if it's for runners I coach who are doing like really hilly, long trail runs, going by time can be a little more appropriate because a 13-mile run on fairly flat terrain doesn't take nearly as long as a 13-mile run that has a few thousand feet of climbing. And so that's really kind of where I draw that line, that distinction. So hill workouts in flat areas. And I always ask new clients of mine, do you have any hills handy? Because some people don't. And I have a mountain range right outside my front door. So it was hard for me to, grasp initially that some people just don't have hills. But you could do stairs, you could do stadiums, our track here has people sometimes do the stairs at the track. Now, take into consideration that while hills are good, if you're not training for an event that has a lot of hills on it, then you don't have to do hills. You don't have to train hills. Running is about specificity, and if you're not training for a hilly event, then it's okay not to do hills. Now, if you need to do hills, you might have to do ups and downs at the stadium on the stairs.